So I talked about integrating different and strong authentication mechanisms to support mobile environments. Let's also talk about strong authentication, particularly using multiple technologies simultaneously. I talked about the architecture here with the endpoints and the adapters on the right. You know, when a request comes in, it basically is going through the workflow, and if the workflow defines multiple technologies, that's what we do, right? So maybe I take the first ID and password, and I go out and I check that against LDAP, and then when we come back, the workflow says, well, we also need to drive a one-time password check. If that was gathered initially, fine. If it wasn't, Trust Builder can actually interact with the user and gather the OTP that the user has generated on their device or their phone. And then ultimately, when Trust Builder has gone through its workflow and checked whichever different repositories it needs, the result can go back to the end user. So you basically get to mix and match the different adapters as you need to satisfy the risk and the authentication requirements in your environment. We provide a number of out-of-the-box authentication workflows. You saw the adapters earlier for ID and password and one-time password, and a couple out-of-band capabilities. We can integrate and consume and also validate and generate different federation or identity mapping capabilities with SAML and OAuth. Lots of capabilities with certificates, biometrics, risk-based authentication, risk-based solutions as well. So again, we provide these out of the box. They work as they work, but then you can grab them and mix and match and build your own kind of custom workflows to do exactly what you're trying to do. There's also kind of identity mapping and linking capabilities. As I talked about earlier, not only do you drive the different adapters, you can also use that to drive different directories, chain directories, or initially look up the user in Active Directory and then maybe go out to LDAP and pull in some additional attributes about the user, et cetera. So very strong, very powerful ways to integrate and map users among different directories and different environments. The Flemish government is a good example of a client. This client has 6 million users. It's using IBM's Web Access Management solution as a point of contact. And they are simultaneously making use of username and passwords, electronic identity cards with certificates, federal tokens, Flemish authority tokens, et cetera. So Trust Builder is helping them map and reach across all these different authentication technologies at once. And the interesting thing is they also have a persona-based access where a user can be entering the government website as an employee, and as an employee they might be presented with 2 or 3 different authentication mechanisms. Or the user might be accessing the government website as a government citizen, and when they come in as a citizen, they would be presented with different authentication options and hence be allowed access to different capabilities. So it's kind of an integration of that adaptive access control, what's going on, who the user is, letting their persona drive what kind of access they should have.